Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pietro, and I have my friend Francesco here.
Hi.
Today we are presenting you bottles. I heard you already know about it thanks to yesterday. Bottles is a project born in 2017 by the mind of Mirko Brombin, the main maintainer that can be with us today. And we are going to tell you something about it, how it's composed, what it's doing, and in particular, we are going through some point, starting from wine itself and how we use it. So, wine is the acronym of, grazie. Wine is the acronym of, maybe it's better this one? No? Okay. Wine is the acronym of wine is not an emulator. So it's not an emulator. It's a compatibility layer. Its scope is to convert on the fly Windows API calls to native POSIX calls. What does it mean? We are not having a virtual machine. We are not running a system into a system. We are just running a software. Let's say like that. Wine is not new. It's around since a lot. But despite that, it's missing some patches that brings technologies to run modern software. For example, DXVK, VKD3D, that are used to convert DirectX calls to native calls, to Vulkan calls. And even if, how to say, these patches are existing, and this allowed, in the time, the creation of forks. There are multiple forks of wine. For example, you may know about Proton, Valve's fork of wine, that is including those patches to run games. Even if Valve is taking care of Proton, maybe not enough. So you can find multiple versions of wine with different names. We have, for example, Caffe. It's our version of Proton, built on using GTK, that is an utility to build your custom wine version, that is including the technologies I just mentioned, plus, for example, Futex2 synchronization and more others. So maybe I forgot to go to this one, sorry. So let me give the word to my friend that is going to tell you something about wine prefixes.
So, Windows software to run requires a Windows-like environment that reproduces a Windows registry and folder structure similar to Windows. These environments are called wine prefixes, and we can define them as containers. The first time we run software via wine, a prefix is automatically created and all the programs are run on it. This is not the best type of approach. Indeed, it's common to use prefix managers, programs, obviously, that allows you to manage multiple prefixes. Bottles is almost a prefix manager, and obviously, prefixes in bottles are called bottles. Unlike competitors, where usually a prefix is created for each program to avoid the compatibility issues between between different. Sorry. Ok. No, lo faccio io. Unlike competitors, where usually
A little applause for Francesco, please.
Thanks. Unlike competitors, where usually a prefix is created for each program to avoid compatibility issues between dependencies, in bottles, the opposite happens. So the user is allowed to create one or more bottles for use it as an environment for one or more programs. While competitors purely rely on a one program per prefix solution to assure that the program works on bottles, we added a set of pre-configured environments. Okay. Those configurations are optimized to run a large set of software out of the box without you need to containerize them. So, grazie. Indeed, creating a bottle, we can choose the environment that fits best the type of software we want to install. For example, gaming or application. When selecting gaming, bottles will install and configure a set of common dependencies and the technology to assure compatibility with most gaming. Like Pietro said earlier, VKD3D, Vulkan, VKD3D, and a layer for translating DirectX calls into Vulkan calls. At any moment, a user can create a custom bottle by selecting the custom environment. In our extreme cases, it's possible to use this environment to create a bottle for a specific software that requires more detailed choices that could break dependency with other software. Here, you can see the versioning. So Pietro will speak about that later. In theory, no. A runner, our version of Cafe or Proton, the version of the XVK, and the architecture of the bottle. Now we'll speak about Bottles UI. So how we made to.
Can I take 1 second?
You want, yeah.
No, you'll do that, but I want to use this screen and that T-shirt of the guy in green that I read before. Makeups, not teams. Was yours? Or there was a green T-shirt? Okay. Because we have been complaining about theming our application. And we support the movement of not theming everything, but be more standard. I saw you. But be more standard and be more compatible in the end. So, great T-shirt. Please support this idea.
Can I? Okay. Bottles UI is made to be responsive without giving up important features. From the Bottles view, it's possible to manually install and configure the required dependencies. For example, .NET Framework, DirectX, etc. And all the technologies like DVK, DXVK, VKD3D, Latency Flex, and other examples. You can edit the display settings, change the version of Wine, like I said earlier, or any other technology. Maybe, yeah, it's this, yeah. Sì. No, quella dietro. Okay. So, okay. We can enable mod like OBS capture for the integration of the source with OBS Studio and a lot of more, much else. So, if bottles want to simplify things, why there are so many settings? On Windows, a program is installed and immediately runs, like this happens with most Linux software. Instead, in Wine, if you try to run Windows software on a different operating system, despite Wine provides out of the box a lot of compatibility, many requirements are still missing, and unfortunately, may never be implemented due to licensing terms. In Windows, when dependency is missing, like a specific version of .NET Framework or a runtime, it's called, it's installed automatically by the system or by the software developer. In Wine, it's required to identify those dependencies and manually install them. So sometimes applying small tricks to ensure compatibility, like modifying a file or extracting a resource. This process, even if it is simplified by bottles thanks to the dependency system, still requires an input from the users because there are no guaranteed method to automatically identify all the dependencies. But for saying that, the first April tweet, it was only a prank. So.
We told everyone we were sure, absolutely sure, to find all the dependencies for every program you try to run. And we did all the magic in the background. Some people believed it.
So, since the end of 2021, Bottles has grown exponentially. Let's look at some numbers. We went from 6,000 to
600.
Sorry. to 2,500 stars in like 6 months. Now we checked earlier. We are.
This is last quarter 2021, first quarter 2022. Updated data for today is 2.8K stars on GitHub. The exponential growth was indeed in this 6-month range, especially end of 2021. We hope to continue like that, of course, and we thank you all our supporters, because probably if you are, well, without probably, if we are here today is thanks to our supporters. So a big shout out to them.
Right now we have 137 contributors on GitHub. We had 76,300 downloads in 6 months on FlatHub, only FlatHub. And on our package, we went on the first 10 packages, first 10 downloaded packages and voted packages. So it's nice things. Bottles is translated in 38 languages. So that's not bad. And we have users worldwide. Okay. We as Bottles have a high level of such interaction with users, especially on Twitter, which is our main platform of choices for talking with people.
Yeah, we are active on Twitter every day and every night, basically. It's our main communication channel with the community. We are happy to see a lot of interaction on it. Probably most of the support comes from it. So it started like a joke on Twitter, but then we seen results and we want to continue on that. But yeah, that's it.
And we have a really nice documentation where we are trying to explain everything and spread information for every user. So everyone can create a dependency or a software or an installer. So it's really nice. And by the time we are adding video tutorials to YouTube, we have a couple of tutorials for like running Cyberpunk 2027 and other programs, and check it.
With the funny music in background, so are nice to see.
Where bottles jump in? So to configure a bottle can be a complex and dangerous procedure. Sometimes in bottles we try to simplify everything as much as possible, like I hope you see, focusing on the user experience. Nowadays, all configuration operations are made via our UI without the need of Wine tools, like opening the task manager or configuring display settings, and configuring technologies like the XVK, VKD3D, Latency Flex, and GameScope. And tools like GameMod, MangoAdd OBS Pure can capture, and many more are one click away. Like, really, it's a button. In order to simplify installation of more complex software, we introduce installers, a set of instructions read by bottles to replicate the installation process in an automatic way. These indeed are going to properly set the bottles configuration, install the dependencies, and apply required modification. Dependencies and installers used by bottles are hosted in a set of public GitHub repositories where the entire community is welcome to amplify the catalog. Bottles is officially supported as Flatpak that allows users to keep data safe thanks to servers and boxes rules. Shout out to Jorge and Robert for the yesterday talk. Nevertheless, we implemented a second level of security, removing by default the ability to work out bottles directory. So every program must be run on the bottles directory.
Yeah, just one more thing, not like the text on the screen, but about Sandbox. If you run the Flatpak version, it's sandboxed by default. Let's say that if you properly set the manifest, you properly build it, it's sandboxed, has access to the directory you're interested in, and that's it. We support some non-Flatpak release, which are supported changes time to time, so don't ask me which are today, because we like to change. But we are using also in a non-Flatpak version some method to isolate your applications. We are not allowing them to go around your system. So the Flatpak version is the most sandboxed one. What we support is our main release method. So if you ask us how to install it, we tell you Flatpak, go on FlatHub, install the Flatpak. If you prefer other methods, there are sandboxing techniques also in other methods.
We have another official method installed, that's Aura. You can find bottles on Arch Linux Aura. Stop.
Okay. So we said everything is nice. It's difficult to manage all this stuff. We needed some management technique, some method to glue all those things together. Bottles managers are born. Bottles managers are small managers talking to each other, taking care of something into bottles. For example, and we built like a brain. I'm not going to say AI because it will be totally false. Don't mix with that. It's a kind of brain because bottles, for each bottle, remembers everything. Remembers the dependencies you need, remembers the programs you install, remembers specific preferences you set on that bottle. So this allows us also to introduce a Git-like tracking of what you've done on your bottle. And we allow you to perform rollbacks to previous state if by mistake something has been broken by a different selection. You changed the runner, you changed the 2, 3, 4, 5 settings together. It's not working anymore, and you say, oh, what I do now? Roll back to previous state. And we keep track of states. So it's not only an undo until the previous one, but to every state you pass it through. Another thing we did, and we have been complaining a lot for that, we removed wine tricks. We are not using it. One thing we didn't say today is that bottles is written in Python. We built some tool in bottles itself, plus what we call the wine bridge. It's a .NET application released for Windows, run into the prefix through bottles, and takes care of what usually Winetricks does using the debugger. So instead of attaching the debugger of Winetricks, we run an application we built that gives us all the information in a quick way. For example, the task manager is not anymore awaiting because the debugger must attach, retrieve the data, and so on, but we run an app that tells which processes are running, and it's a bit faster. Try to believe. So we said, okay, what can we do more? Because every time we reach something, we think to what is then. This is not totally true, because we have already ideas for the next year, basically. And we are trying to understand how to implement all of them. The next one are the layers. So when you create a prefix, you, as we said, create a Windows-like structure with basic files, basic DLLs, Windows registry, and so on. Keeping focus on the technique of one program per prefix, one program per bottle, you create many of them. So you need a lot of space to run many programs. As we said in bottles, we discourage running a one prefix per program. We invite you to run multiple programs on the same prefix, on the same bottle, because you have a smooth management of dependencies. This is not always possible, because there are softwares that can't be in the same bottle with other software due to different dependency requirement. So you could break a software to make another one run. The easy way is create another bottle for that software. Can be another gaming or software environment, can be a custom environment. The point is, you need it. This means, again, you are going to require more space. And we say, that's bad. These are costing always more and more, thanks to COVID also. So what we can do about that? We said layers. We are splitting the prefix, dependencies, and software. And we are tracking for each software, what do you need as dependencies? And we recognize common dependencies that are loaded when you need to run the software. So basically, there is one empty prefix. Every time to install a software using our manager, it uses YAML manifests to know what to install, not only as a software, but also as dependencies. So when you install a software that requires a new dependency, the dependency is installed as a separated layer. When you run that program, the layer of the program and the dependency is taken and run. You install a new software that uses the same dependency. The dependency is already present on your PC, so it's not installed again. It's loaded, the new program is installed. In the moment you install a software that has a different dependency used only by that software, that dependency is isolated and loaded only when that program needs to run. And the system manages parallel run of software with different dependencies, because it creates on the fly a fork of the vanilla prefix, we could say, to run the software you need, and uses always less space as possible. This feature is already present in bottles, deactivated on the final build that goes to user, because we are still in development. In debug, it's possible to run it. It's kinda working. it is requiring more evaluation, and we are evaluating the usage of OS3, for example. The problem is we need support. It's a bit complicated to run all these things, all this magic in a smooth way. So I noticed today there is a talk on OS3. I'll be a lot interested in it. If you have an idea, if you know OS3, if you think it's bad to use OS3 and you have other solutions, you are welcome. We are here to listen to you and have a talk about how to properly reach this result. Future plans.
We have many ideas, like AppDB. On AppDB, certified contributors can publish installers. So you know that installer is done the properly way of Bottle and is certified by us. The second thing is community-driven, so users can provide feedback to improve installers. And if an app is not working, you can try a suggested alternative on Linux. Like we can provide a Linux alternative valid for that software, or a Windows alternative.
I'll add also a point about using the software database, aka AppDB, about the layers, but in general how Bottles today works. Bottles is using a set of public repositories on GitHub to retrieve all the YAML manifests of dependencies, installers, and so on. So Bottles itself is already community-driven. Everyone can go on our repositories, open a pull request to add officially a package in meaning of technologies, dependencies, fonts, installers, and so on. We would like to extend that. We would like to run an AppDB, we could say like ProtonDB, where everyone can contribute on identifying applications to run on Linux via Wine, or to suggest alternatives, native alternatives to that application. We all know there are softwares that can't run on Linux, Windows software that can't run on Linux. So how do you choose which alternative to use? Community feedback. So even if an application is not working, you can go there, you will be able to go there and see, okay, other Linux users, what are doing when needing this software? About all the possibilities, which are the best one? So we go to the developer sub. The developer sub helps the porting of Windows software on Linux, helps both in matter of conversion, adapting the code to run on Linux, and if possible, to run through Wine, because maybe there is only some small thing that is not working properly to run on Wine. Again, with the community-driven and with the community support. So with the experience of many developers, not only our experience. We would like to provide some tools. So not only, okay, try to do this thing and check if it works. Nice, but how can you be sure it works? We would like to develop some testing tool that really tells you the result of what you've done. And again, we need help of community. We would like to run on, we know we are running on Steam Deck, but Valve totally ignored our request of having a Steam Deck. I'm in queue for the order. Maybe by the end of the year, they'll ask me to pay my Steam Deck, but I can't have it. So we can't test Bottles on Steam Deck. We have the community that is testing it. We are blindly doing edits to the code, and the community is telling us if it works. So we would like to improve that. We are lucky to have some sponsor and a lot of support. Gitbook provided us the community license along with compliments for what we are doing. They answered to our email excited. that was nice to see. Weblate, JetBrains provided us the full set of software. Linode is giving us servers and increased our bandwidth when we saw that we were a bit scared of where we were going. And Fabricators is a company giving support on the technology side. And we have some plan for the future of bottles to spread its usage everywhere. There are many ways to support us. First of all, feedback on GitHub and Twitter. If you have ideas, if you can create installers, if you have whatever, simple suggestion, user feedbacks, everything is welcome. And if you can afford it, of course, we accept some funding to keep it up. You can follow us via our website, visit our GitHub, follow us on Twitter. The handle is @usebottles. You can email us if you prefer, but as we said before, Twitter is our favorite communication channel. And I wanted to print t-shirts today to turn back with, by the way, use bottles, but we didn't do it on time. So thanks for being here. If you have any question, Francesco answers.
So let's make Francesco answer.
Yay.
Questions? Not really a question. I don't do not really a question.
I wanted to ask, what do you think about other software like Lutris and Play on Linux?
We were expecting that.
Yeah.
I answer.
Yeah.
Well, different target, first of all. Lutris, Play on Linux, along others, are the target is play games on Linux. They are not only doing that, but it's the target. To be honest, Bottles didn't born for that. Was born for software. Then the community, the main usage is games, but it's it could be expected. So different target, different final objective, but we like to be friends with everyone. We don't really care what you use. Choose what you prefer. Choose what fits better your needs. And we are open to cooperation. We are open to, we are talking about open source. Even if commonly there is hating in open source, we want to be friends with everyone. So they can do their job and keep it up.
All right, another.
Hi, one question is both Bottles and Lutris, as far as I know, if I'm wrong, sorry, don't complete the click and go expectations you would have as a Windows user. Like, I click the executable and it starts. Are there plans like they're like Bottles guessing what prefix would be the best, like 95%, and then it just starts. Maybe I missed it, sorry. That's the verified installers.
Yes.
Ah, nice.
Basically, I don't know if this is working for the remote. Basically, yes. Both softwares are relying on manifests. So there is, as I said, there is no guaranteed way to know what is the requirement. With the time, we could find a way, some method, but manifests as what are needed. So more manifests are available, more software you can click and run, if those are registered. And this is where an AppDB could be a big benefit and requires a big effort to be complete.
All right, thank you.
All right, we got one more question up front here, and then maybe one more.
By the way, congratulations on your success.
Thanks.
You're doing fantastic. My question is, with single applications, you launch it, it's one app, that's fine. But video games, of course, have launchers and Adobe Creative Cloud. You don't just launch Photoshop, you have to launch the Adobe Creative Cloud. And then from that, you can launch Photoshop, and it has built-in license management and all that kind of stuff. How does that work with bottles? Like one app that will then run about that and spawns more apps from it.
Well, in truth, the magic is into Wine in this case. Our main tested software is the Epic Games Launcher. There is some magic in the background, thanks to Wine. When you run the software, it is running in this Windows ecosystem, and when it launches the process, it launches it through Wine, so into the prefix. And it takes all the advantages of the prefix. But the first software we test for each release is the Epic Games Launcher, and Mirko loves Overwatch, so the first game that is played is Overwatch. And with our runner, he saw better frame rate than running it directly on Linux. Sorry? He played it because he loves that one too.
The question was whether World of Warcraft would work.
So, yeah.
Oh, one real question back here.
So I didn't quite understand the current state of layers. So in the current state, you said that the layers kind of work, but they are pretty buggy. So it's an experimental feature.
Well, yes, we can say it's buggy. Okay, we can say that. It's experimental, but not really. We have an experimental section in bottles in the settings. It is not even experimental. It is a developer option. So to run them, you have to run bottles in a development environment and let's say unlock the code that is running it. Okay. Say it in a simple way. So because we launched some experimental feature in the experimental section, that is another story. Okay. But the layers right now are keeping track of what happens and are recognizing the files, are moving them, but is not 100% of times going smooth. It's buggy in the end, yes.
So dependencies don't get installed every time for each bottle?
With the layers, with the layers. Right now, they are installed for each bottle.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's give him a hand. This wraps it up.